In 2001, A Space Odyssey, you have space planes that dock with the space station. This is symbolism being used in 1968 of 9/11. So the film is called 2001, A Space Odyssey. Now in 1968, this is whenever the Twin Towers blueprints were made. This is also whenever they started to rise above the ground. It's also when 9/11 emergency code was created by AT&T. So 2001 is whenever the 9/11 attacks actually happened, when we seen a plane run into the Twin Towers. Now the space station is made to look like this on purpose. If you look at it in certain views of the film, you can see this, and the plane is coming at it. So you have the space plane going into this space station that looks like Twin Towers. So if you look at it from the side here, it looks like Twin Towers. This is similar to the ISS as well. So on 9/11/2001, the ISS was above the Twin Towers, and there was an astronaut on board who was reading the book, Tom Clancy's The Sum of All Fears. And as he was reading the book, the Twin Towers was struck, and he took photos from the ISS and showed us. Tom Clancy has books where 747s fly into Capitol buildings of the United States, also nuclear incidents. This astronaut reading Sum of All Fears as the 9/11 happens could connect to a future 9/11 with nukes. They chose 2001 because of the 2001 two towers become zeros, then there's one World Trade Center. 11/3, you had the one World Trade Center open. Start of the film, they talk about a fake pandemic and an election. The election during the pandemic, the one where Trump lost, was on 11/3, and the pandemic was on 3/11. On 9/11/2001, in front of the Twin Towers was this building, the Millennium Hilton. This is what it looks like. It looks like the monolith in 2001: A Space Odyssey. So this thing is in front of the Twin Towers as they fall down. So you have the two fell and the one standing. Here's the logo, Millennium Hilton. Look at it closer. What is this symbol? What's with this? It looks like a Twin Towers with something flying into it, hitting both of them. And notice it's called Millennium. Like 2001. Russia, and they're saying don't mind the toxic air, the toxic odor. Don't mind the toxic air and the biohazard suits. Everything's fine on the ISS. The unexplained odor smelled like spray paint, according to NASA. So we had a news story about Russia and the ISS recently. So they opened this hatch and everyone smelled an unexplained odor. The incident launched yet another inquiry into something going wrong on the Russian side of the ISS. So when this happened, they went into quarantine and they started using protective equipment. So PPE and quarantine. So they're acting like it's 2020 pandemic up on the ISS right now, that 9/11 event that I was warning about ahead of time. NASA fears the air leaks are warning signs of a catastrophic problem endangering the entire station. Russia says it's just wear and tear. So if something happened, I guess Russia would be blamed right now. Some kind of event happened with the ISS. And also, it's strange how we have it connecting to the pandemic, and then also we're talking about more toxic air and biohazard suits. So in 2021, during the pandemic, they were acting like we're going to have to make vaccines on the ISS, because some reason, if you make the vaccines in the ISS, it's going to be more better for us. In 2021, during the pandemic, the ISS, while everybody was getting shots down on Earth, the ISS got hit by a space debris, and it looked like it had also got a vaccine. This ISS also connects to Boeing. So we just had Starliner send 2 astronauts up, and I was warning ahead of time saying that there's going to be some kind of issue if they send this Boeing Starliner. It's because in the news we've had all this Boeing planes falling down. So as you can see, all these news stories with Boeing are scripted. They all have the 33s in them, and then the Boeing Starliner was going up, so I knew there was going to be some kind of issue, and it seems like they're pointing at the ISS is going to have some kind of issue. So whenever the Starliner went up, it was all connected to the Zodiac, so it was timed with the Zodiac, And the storyline had to do with the Odyssey. It had to do with Homer's Odyssey. So you have Odysseus, who is in the Battle of Troy, and after the Battle of Troy, he has a journey home, but he gets stopped by this nymph on an island. So she's trying to fall in love with him, and she's keeping him there and not letting him leave. Now this is the story that's being played on the ISS right now. You had the Starliner send the people up to the ISS, and it had problems from the get-go, and they got stuck on the ISS. So now you have one of them, they're saying, starving on there. This whole thing is a storyline of Odysseus and the Odyssey, which connects to A Space Odyssey 2001. And this whole Boeing Starliner to the ISS thing is really a continuation of the Titan sub from the other year, which connects to Godzilla, nukes, and connects to Titanic, which is a ship. And I'm saying the ISS is named like a ship, ISS, because it's going to sink like the Titanic. And it looks like the Twin Towers. So something either is going to blow it up, run into it, or something's going to happen to it, possibly from another country, like a 9/11 style attack. So NASA and Russia are not getting along now because they're not getting along on the ground. Now this goes along with the movie that I've been talking about, which is called ISS, and this came out in 2024 on January the 19th. So you have a movie come out about the ISS and a problem in it with a nuclear war going down on Earth between Russia and NATO. And this movie comes out on 1/19, which is a backwards 9/11. In the film, we have a nuclear war, which is something else I've been talking about. The nukes connect to 9/11 because in 9/11, they called the World Trade Center where it happened after it fell, they called it Ground Zero. And that's the exact same thing they call nukes whenever they go off. Where they go off at is called Ground Zero. The Russians and the NATO is trying to take control of the ISS because they're trying to make a vaccine in the ISS. They need the ISS to make a vaccine to save everyone on the Earth from radiation. So they're making like an anti-radiation vaccine. So we just came out of a pandemic, right, where they made vaccines to save us, and then they had the ISS during the pandemic and said that they're going to start making medicine on the ISS. Like maybe it could make a vaccine to cure us from the virus. Now if we look at COVID-19, here's coronavirus. So here is the symbol that they give you, the model. Now this is just a 3D model, that's not a real image or anything, it's just made up. But if you look at it, it looks very similar to this ISS film. So look, we have the Earth, and then we have a mushroom cloud on the Earth here. And what does this look like? It looks like Earth with a bunch of nukes going off, a bunch of mushroom clouds going off all over the Earth, which is what's going on in this film. There's nukes going off all over it. So you see the Earth in the movie, and there's all these mushroom clouds going off all over it. It looks like this. The first COVID-19 victim in United States is on 1/19. This is also the date that the Donnie Darko film came out, where the plane falls down and kills him. Don Darko, we're talking about Don Trump.
So you have a connection between the pandemic, the ISS, 9/11, and nukes. So you have this clear connection between all four of those things.
Recently, in the news, we had ATACMS long-range missiles that were sent to Ukraine by USA to attack inside of Russia, and this was on a date 11/19 that looks like a 9/11. That we had Russia use their new experimental intercontinental ballistic missile. They didn't have a warhead attached to it, but it was a warning to the West, according to the news. And this is as Russia is waiting Putin's order to test a nuclear weapon after 33 years since the last one. This also happened during the 33rd month of the war. Also news on 11/19 was Russia builds nuclear bomb shelters. HP creates the fastest supercomputer ever to simulate nukes. Why do we need a simulated nuke?